So I feel like when we talk about Redbird and the story behind Redbird, it came together really fast. And, originally when I decided to open up Redbird, I was working in Houston full time, and, I had my job for over 5 years. So it was going to be a totally change of pace. And for the first time, I was kind of getting out of my comfort zone in a long time. And that's when I started to kind of search around to see, where I wanted to work at and what industry I wanted to work in. And I came across Feges BBQ. And that was kind of my first place I ever worked at in a restaurant setting in general. So there was a lot of things that for me was just, everything was new. I worked there for, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 months. And during that time is when they opened up their Spring Branch location. And, during that time, I knew that I wanted to open up my own barbecue restaurant. And I just wanted to learn, and I'd seen Patrick and I'd seen Feges BBQ at one of the Urban Harvest Farmers Market. And I thought that was super cool that they were there. And so when I saw them, that's kind of what started me in barbecue, was just wanting to get a job. And I feel like when I really started being interested in barbecue is when I started working at Feges, just trimming briskets, seeing them how they do things. I thought it was really cool. But unfortunately, I knew I was moving back to Beaumont. And my time at Feges kind of ran short. I think I worked there for about 6 months. And then I ended up moving back to Beaumont. And I think a really turning point for Redbird and how Redbird is where it is and why we're able to do what we're doing now. The turning point of that was I was online one day and I was just looking at different barbecue spots, and I was trying to find a place where I could really kind of get inspiration from, in a sense. And I saw one of the pitmasters up in Fort Worth working at Goldees, Johnny. He was doing consulting. And during that time, I was just really wanting to learn. And this was way before the list dropped. And, Johnny was doing consulting, and I saw that he had posted about it. And so I reached out to him I think it was early 2021. And I just bought a smoker on Facebook, and I really didn't know much about how to cook. And that's when Johnny came in, and, me and him were messaging back and forth for a long time. And I feel like that was the turning point of Redbird, and just me being able to truly get into barbecue during that time. And Johnny was so responsive. I'd be cooking in my dad's backyard, and he would be messaging back and forth. I'd be asking him what to do here. What fire, how should I build the fire? What temperature should I do? And we started to become really good friends, just building a good relationship back and forth. And this was before they got #1. And, if you're someone coming outside of barbecue, coming into barbecue, you don't realize that there is a whole world of barbecue, and the energy and the people in barbecue, and just all of the things that go with it. And I didn't know much. And so me and Johnny were talking back and forth, and, one day he reached out to me, and he was like, the list is dropping soon. And, they heard maybe they had made it high on the list. And, I'd quit my job working in Houston. I'd quit Feges, moved back down to Beaumont. So I really had a lot of time on my hands. And I remember my dad telling me, hey, ask them if they need help. Ask them if you can go up there and just learn. And so, I reached out to Johnny. I'm like, hey, man, I don't have a job right now. I know you guys, that list is about to drop, and I know you guys think that y'all are going to be getting somewhere high, because I think a picture may have been released of like the front page of the Texas Monthly article a couple days before, and it was a picture of their tray. And so Johnny was like, I think we're getting number one. And I'm like, listen, man, you know, I don't know much, but like if you need an extra body, if you need help, you let me know and I'll be up there. And he was like, yeah. He was like, come on. And I was like, let's do it. You know what I mean? It was like, I didn't have much to think about it. I didn't have a lot of time to just think about, you know, getting out of my comfort zone and doing all these things. I just kind of jumped into it. And ironically, the day I started working up at Goldees was the weekend after they got number one. And so I thought that was a really cool experience for me. You know, Johnny was working the rib shift that night, the night before that Friday they opened. And he was like, can you be up here at midnight? And for me, I'm like, I had never pulled an all-nighter in barbecue. Like, this was my first time to do anything like that. So I'm thinking like, yeah, man, I can do it. And so I drove from Beaumont to Fort Worth. I think I left at like 6 or 7 p.m. I drove all the way up to Fort Worth, straight into Goldees parking lot at midnight. And I didn't know Johnny. I'd never met him before in real life. You know, Jalen's walking out. He's looking at me like, who the hell is this guy? You know, Johnny, there's camera crews everywhere. Johnny's the only one working the rib shift that night. You know, they just got number one. It was crazy. Cameras everywhere, people filming. And I'm just like, hey, man, you know, let me know what I can do. And I think being there after they got number one, that entire weekend was just a big eye-opener for me. And like, you know, it was kind of like, hey, welcome to what barbecue is. And, you know, that experience for me was just unbelievable. The people that showed up, how polished and how confident Lane, Jalen, Johnny. I remember Dylan being up there too. It was just something. It was an amazing sight to see, and I was just behind the scenes. You know, these guys, they didn't know me at all. You know, and they kind of just allowed me to be behind the scenes in a sense of, you know, welcome to, you know, what we're doing here. And it was kind of addicting. It was an addictive feeling to be up there. It didn't feel like work. And so every chance I got from that point on, I worked up in Fort Worth. You know, I say I worked up there for 2 years. It was a little bit less than 2 years, but it was a constant, me going up there for 10 days at a time and just working, you know, 10, 12-hour days and learning everything I could. And, you know, I feel like Redbird and the success of Redbird and where Redbird is has a lot to do with my experience up in Fort Worth at Goldees and how much and how I was able to do what I was when I was there. You know, they really trusted me a lot as I continued to grow there. And every single person that owns Goldees, that worked at Goldees, they're all invested in Redbird. They all want Redbird to do well. They've all been super supportive of Redbird. And I feel like that experience I got up in Fort Worth at Goldees was an experience of a lifetime. And I tell them guys, like, when I'm up there in Fort Worth, I'm like, this is the best time of my life. Just working up there and seeing that and them helping me while I was, you know, helping them as much as I could. I feel like that was a big reason for the confidence of myself and the way that I have been able to open up Redbird and, you know, kind of portrayed everything that we've been doing. And I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, you know, because as soon as they made number one, Johnny didn't have time to do consulting anymore. So, like, he was doing consulting before Goldees got number one because they may have had a little bit of time on their hands. You know, they were open on the weekends. They were getting into a good groove. But as soon as they got number one, Johnny really kind of shut down consulting. So I got in at the perfect time. And a lot of people ask me, like, how do you know those guys? And, you know, how are you able to go up there and work? it was really just because Johnny gave me that chance of like, hey man, yeah, come on. And Redbird would not be where it's at without that experience. Without Feges, without Goldees, without me just truly, truly wanting to learn everything that I can. And I knew that my time up there would come to an end. And so for me, I lived up there, and I feel like my experience doing that and being able to see everything from that perspective has really, allowed me to be successful here at Redbird already. And I think that the best thing about my experience up there was being able to work with every single person, like one-on-one. Like I worked up there when Chuck from Barb's worked up there, and I did multiple brisket shifts with her. It's just me and her, and I got to see how she pulled briskets and what she looked for. Same with Jalen. I got to see what Jalen looked for in briskets and how he pulled briskets. Same with Lane. I got to see what Lane did on his fires, how he would build them differently than Jalen, or how he would build them differently than Chuck or Johnny. And I think that experience of like literally working the rib shift with everyone, working the brisket shift with everyone, each individually, and seeing how each individual person did it, everything seemed very similar, but they all had little bit different ways of doing things. And I think that was a big reason of me being able to kind of see it from all different lenses and kind of put all of that together and, do that at Redbird. And, each specific person up there really helped me a lot. And I think that was really cool to be able to do that.